Well, hello. What can I do for you?
Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Astarion, where he came from, what we know about him, and what his future may hold. Canonically, vampires were always creatures of evil, regardless of who you were in life. Once you turned, your thoughts and actions became more dark, seeking power in all of its forms and engaging in decadent habits. You would see yourself as someone superior to everyone and everything else, regardless of your actual strength. Astarion is a high elf vampire spawn that was sired by the vampire lord Cazador. What we know so far is that 200 years ago, he was beaten and left for dead by a group of Gur before being tricked into slavehood by Cazador in exchange for new life. Being a vampire spawn, he is basically an incomplete vampire forced to obey the commands of the one who turned him. Spawn gain all of the drawbacks to vampirism, but little to none of the benefits. If free will isn't given to him by his master, he either needs to drink their blood to become a true vampire, or their master has to die. Although the city of Baldur's Gate currently has no need for magisters thanks to the city officials, the Watch, and the Flaming Fist, 200 years ago, Astarion used to work as a magistrate for the city, enforcing law here and there as he saw fit. Until one evening, he happened upon a group of Gur and made an unfavorable ruling that led to his enslavement by Cazador. For a bit of lore context, the Gur are a society of nomads who are said to share a lineage to the Rishimi, the same people Minsk calls family. They were a very gypsy-like people who sometimes settled in the poor sections of major cities like Baldur's Gate and Elturel, facing prejudice and hardship wherever they went. Despite taking up random jobs and trading in unwanted goods, they were usually known to be gifted oracles with talents in soothsaying and divination. I have to wonder, did Cazador hire them for some elaborate plan to ensnare Astarion, or did the Gur see a vision of the far future and acted accordingly? Now, as far as what we know about Cazador, he belongs to the Szarr family of nobility. We learned from a section in Descent into Avernus that a long time ago, the Szarr family estate within the city was burnt to the ground by a rival family and eventually converted into a massive cemetery. It is currently unknown how he survived the incident, or even if the coven he currently leads is also comprised of other Szarr family members, but as it is, Astarion has been commanded to serve the whole Szarr family. And from what Astarion has described to us, Cazador is a vampire lord with immense power and multitudes of slaves under his command. I have to wonder what his strength is when compared to someone like Strahd. Astarion's personality is pretty spot on for what a vampire spawn could be, but there are times where I feel like his old self comes to the surface. I truly feel like Astarion hates what he is, and probably hates the idea of turning into what he hates the most, a true vampire like Cazador. But at the same time, he can't help what he is, eagerly thirsting for our blood one night and seeking power through the tadpole or even the Thane Book of Necromancy. He despises the idea of switching servitude from the Szarr family to a bunch of Illithids, but also loves the idea of milking the tadpole for all it's worth until the last moment. Even the Necromancy book, despite how dangerous it is, he is adamant about reading it for any possible benefit he could gain against his master. Thinking about how vampire spawns sometimes try to gather other undead like wights, mummies, and ghouls as soldiers or bodyguards, it's possible Astarion is searching the book for specifically how to raise undead under his command like how the Liches of Thay do. It's also possible he thinks it holds a secret to controlling other undead in general, or even bringing the undead back to life. It feels very much like one way or another, he's convinced this book holds the secret he needs to defeating Cazador. Even if that secret happens to be how to turn a vampire lord back into a mortal man. A very vulnerable mortal man. Despite everything though, if given the chance to drink Cazador's blood and become a true vampire, he'd still settle for just killing him. And when discussing his blood drinking habits while in your party, he willingly agrees to go along with whatever you tell him. I think that after 200 years of enslavement, he's still struggling between what he is and what he used to be. When meeting Gandrel, the monster hunter, Astarion is completely sure that he was sent by Cazador to capture him, and that Gandrel being a Gur was to remind Astarion of that one night from so long ago. Despite this man being hell-bent to take Astarion away from us, even if it means killing all of us, I think a third party is at work here. Although it's a simple guess to say that Cazador paid the original group of Gur to attack Astarion, it didn't make sense to me since, as a spawn, he couldn't refuse his master's orders anyways. Now, thinking on the idea that the Gur of Baldur's Gate had seen Astarion's future and acted accordingly, that has a little more weight to it. When Gandrel is alive, at most what we can learn is that his people are waiting for him at the city. But when speaking to his corpse, we learn a bit more. Astarion was wrong. He wholeheartedly believed Cazador has the power to chase him wherever he goes. But the reality of it is that one of the Gur possibly used divination magic to locate the area near the Green Hag to find him. We learn from his corpse that he works for someone called Maiden Fell, and that he doesn't even know who Cazador is. From what I can tell, Maiden Fell is a new face with the only hint as to who she is from an endgame book called The Approachable East 3. I found this book from a post about some datamine content, so take it with a grain of salt. The book contained a story about the origin of the Gur as being two Rashimi Wiclerin who were cursed by their elders, turned into songbirds, and later saved by a Selûnite cleric after escaping. Supposedly all Gur descended from them, and despite no longer practicing Wiclerin magics, still retain it in their bloodline. It also stated that all Gur matriarchs take the title of Maiden. The no-name writer of this in-game book speculates that the people of Rashomon might tell a different story from what we learned here. It is possible that other books in the game might pop up telling us more. The final thing Gandrel could tell us about her is that she is the reason that even monsters have nightmares. I think it's possible that the Gur matriarchs foresaw a great evil or some great event that required Astarion of all people to be there to stop it, with the first step being to put him in Cazador's path. And for what we know about the scars on his back, a tiefling character can identify it as infernal letters in the shape of some kind of seal. Reddit user Northpaw_S was able to roughly translate the scars thanks to the infernal alphabet that was made canon with the Descent into Avernus campaign. It reads, "This soul swears no oath by fire, nor words does he speak, in the realm of death." I originally thought it might have been used as some sort of tracking spell or additional subjugation on top of already being a vampire spawn. With this rough translation, I'm starting to think it's a seal to prevent Cazador's slaves from seeking help with beings of infernal or celestial origins. Because who could be naturally more powerful than a vampire lord, but able to render aid if certain conditions were met? Considering Astarion might have PTSD from 200 years of enslavement and being wrong about the monster hunter, I think it's safe to say that anything involving Cazador will be woefully misinterpreted by him. The infernal marks on his back are definitely not a poem. Thinking about the future, I foresee Astarion having two paths to choose from, one of power and vengeance, and one of redemption. Although I don't think his path hinges on us romancing him, despite learning important information from doing so, I think at most just being a good friend to him and getting your approval rating higher will be enough to trigger a change in him as we move along. If left to his own devices, I think he'd just go crazy in search of power to take down Cazador and become something much different from where he started. Here are my final thoughts on what may happen with Astarion in the future. Keeping to the two paths mindset, I think the Necromancy book is the start of the path to power for him. After he successfully reads it, he's marked with a new tag in his character profile that says Forbidden Knowledge, and he learns the Speak with Dead spell. Despite the original owner being a wayward lich pretending to be a sort of doctor, who's to say it's not something he took from someone else before leaving Thay? That book truly is a wild card in my eyes, and we will definitely be seeing more of it in the future. Meanwhile, the mysteriousness around the Gur and the possibilities tied to them could be the path of redemption for Astarion. I see the second path as a way for him to become a sort of anti-hero, Despite being undead himself, I can picture him using the benefits of his undeath to destroy other abusive beings similar to his master Cazador. And meeting Maiden Fell might just be the turning point for that path. She is, after all, someone that even monsters fear, and Gandrel was tasked to retrieve him alive. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Even if it's something wildly outrageous, I'd love to see it. Until next time, stay safe out there.